Let's make the all-wheel drive transfer case fit, shall we?
Are you sure about that?
Let's go. Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, I'm Matt. Let's continue working on the all-wheel drive swap for the Chevy Cruze. We went to the dyno, made some good power. We've completely gutted the car and added some race safety equipment. So next step is, let's finish what we started here. So the plan is, we have our transmission in the car. However, I need to pull out that diff and replace it with our all-wheel drive diff. I do plan on welding this up because it is an open diff. But first, let's get this diff out because I'm going to have to pull the axles, remove the diff. We'll mock that diff up in there, see where our transfer case is going to lie because I'm going to need to cut the floorboard, in which this section right here will all have to raise up. So I'm going to need to move these computers out of the way. We've got the body control module. This looks like the module for the airbags. Who knows, we might be able to just go ahead and get rid of that since we have no airbags anymore. We just got cables dangling all over the place where the airbags were. So we got a lot to do here. Let's go ahead and drain the fluids, remove the axles, the diff, and we'll just take it from there. Let's get after it. Oh, these tires still smell fresh. See if we can not drop this in here. Woo, all right. Fluid's looking pretty good. I don't know if you can see that. Pry this thing out. We just about have this differential out of here to save y'all some time watching some of the boring stuff. The axles are out, all of the bolts aside from a handful just to hold on to this case. So let's pop this thing open. We'll let that drain for a moment. We'll take the LSD diff out, put the all-wheel drive diff in there just to mock it up or weld it up so that way we can attack the floor. There we go. Out she goes. Well, we have easy access to everything. Let's get this power steering motor out of the way because our transfer case is going to want to go right here. To get to these other connections, it'd be easier just to move this motor, in which it's just 3 6mm bolts. Sorry, I have to shove y'all out of the way sometimes to get to this stuff. Okay, there we go. Come on, look out, come on. There we go. Woo, one electric power steering out. We'll have to weigh it, see how much we just reduced the weight of the car. Now that we have this wiring harness out of the way, just got it kind of dropped out of the way so we can get some work done here. We'll need to remove this because this mount will change, and I'll show you that here later on. Still have that part coming in. And now you can see we have a clear shot here. From what I recall, the transfer case was hitting right about here. So we'll definitely have to raise up the floor, just a portion of it. Let's go ahead and toss the differential back in, mock up our transfer case, and see where we're at. Let's see if I can't get this bracket out of y'all's way. Of course. While the camera has been off, I've done a couple things in order just to speed up the process, and we're just about ready to start cutting. I removed the heat shield from the exhaust tunnel, which is where our drive shaft will now go, and I cleared these computers out of the way. I took them off their brackets, shoved them over to the side, removed our accelerator pedal just to get a little extra room. Now I'm thinking from this seam here, we can just cut right here. I took some measurements. The drive shaft is about 3.5 inches wide. This is 6 inches. So I'm thinking what we can do is we can just cut the floor all the way up where the seam is at right here, and we'll cut it pretty close to where the shifter cables are at. We'll have to notch maybe 2 or 3 inches up here at the top to give it room to basically just bend this whole section up. And then we'll see if everything fits. If it does, then really it's just a matter of filling in the gaps. So I'm going to get to cutting Wish me luck, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully I don't run into the brake line that's over on the passenger side. I know where it's at. It's gonna be close though. Here we go. It is the next day and I managed to squeeze in the transfer case. Let me go ahead and show you what we're working with. It's up in there. We've got the floorboard cut. We'll need to do a little more trimming, but that's okay. We're making progress. So you can see the tail shaft or the tail end of the transfer case right here, just under the sheet metal, and it's bumping right into the firewall. So we need to trim out about another inch. So we got her up in there, got a couple bolts holding it in, and you can see right where it's hitting. So we just need to clearance it just a little bit more. It should give us enough room for the drive shaft to come down. We'll have our bottom mounting points here. I think we got enough of an angle. Shoot it on back to the differential. But once we get all this sorted out, we get it bolted in there, we can start mocking up the drive shaft and figure out how much more length we need to add to it, because we will need to add some length. This Cruze is a little bit longer than the Trax. So another thing that will make this quite easy is I do have an OEM transmission bracket that came in. Started mocking it up. The bolt that came out of the Cruze, so we took the transmission mount out as you saw a little earlier. But it does look like it will line right up with this bolt hole. However, this will not slide into this bracket here, so we'll have to cut here, here, and here. That way this can slide in, and then we'll just extend this out so that way it helps reinforce it. So I'm going to pull this transfer case out. We'll make a few more cuts, toss it back in, and then hopefully we should be able to put the drive shaft in, drop that off at a drive shaft shop here locally, have them lengthen it, and ladies and gentlemen, there is one more thing that I completely overlooked, and this is what it is. And I didn't realize this until I got this thing up in here, but this intermediate shaft right here is not the correct length. So I looked up some diagrams online and found that the manual transfer box has a longer intermediate shaft to go all the way into the differential here. Not a big deal. Luckily, I did find a transfer case in which really all we need is a shaft, because the case is exactly the same. We'll have a spare one at least, but the intermediate shaft here, or the idler shaft, whatever you want to call it, that's the part that we need. So it may set us back just a little bit. Not a big deal though. Let's see if I can't bring y'all along for a little bit of the ride here. Sometimes the camera just gets in the way. And hopefully this thing doesn't fall on my head. Here. Come on out. There we go. Good times. She is out of there. One of the things I'll have to figure out. Maybe I'll figure it. One of the things I have to figure out, which let's see if I can't do that right now. Starter, some of these cables are the way I have them orientated, kind of getting in the way. Definitely don't want it shorting out. I have to guard that with something. Battery's unplugged. It's been unplugged for a while, but you get the point. All right. Alrighty, let's see if we can sort this out, shall we?
All right. Are you sure about that?
Now that we've got a nice big gaping hole here, let's go ahead and toss this transfer case in, shall we? Yes. We have the drive shaft up in the car, boys and girls. There we are. We'll have to make this section go up. We'll probably have a straight piece come out to pass this part of the U-joint on the drive shaft. I do think I'm going to have to cut this just a little bit more back past this seam right here on each side, just to kind of raise this thing up, get a more even incline, if you will. We have this thing mocked up. I did take a measurement. It's right at about 7.5 inches that this needs to be lengthened. I do have enough clearance where I can put my fingers through. We'll have to make some brackets to come off the bottom of the unibody here to hold the center carrier up. I think what I'll end up doing is, when I take this to a drive shaft shop, have them lengthen this bigger end. This diameter is a little bit bigger. That way, we'll be able to clear this support brace right here in the middle of the car. As it stands right now, that's about as high as I'm going to get this thing without it clearing that. So that should resolve that issue there. And we're a little tight right here. So as I was saying, where that seam is in the car, we'll just cut it here, make all this nice and flat, raise it up. We'll do a little more cutting and do a little cardboard aided drafting or drawing. Cardboard aided drawing. Anyhow, got ourselves some cardboard pieces. I'm gonna go ahead, make that cut, move this thing up. Then we'll start mocking up this cardboard here, trace it out, kind of box that all back in. We'll weld it up. So let's get some more work done, shall we? I made my cut and I pried this thing up a little bit more. So now the top of this part here is nice and level with this section here. Now we'll see if we can't draft up some templates here. 22 inches. Alrighty. We have our templates all made up for the floor here. I test fitted everything in the car. Now we just need to cut these out. I traced the pattern over to some 16 gauge steel. Now all we have to do is cut this out. We'll prep the floor to set the steel to go in. We just got to clean it up so we can weld things in. So I'm going to get after that so we can continue to make some progress. Let's hit it. We got our drive shaft out of the way. We've got the metal cleaned up, the bare metal, the best of my ability, and with the limited amount of space I have here. Time to put these panels in, tack them up. Hopefully I'm not in y'all's way. But we gotta get this done. Don't move. We've got the panels tacked in, and one of the issues I'm running into trying to TIG weld all this is, like here where I blew through, it's just really hard to control. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can turn the TIG welder down, but I do need a tool to do the job. And I think when it comes to welding on sheet metal, this will do a better job. Wow! Got one of Amazon's finest here, and there were a lot of good reviews on this, so for 180 bucks. Said why not. So we got a MIG welder, which will work a lot better for sheet metal. And let's see how this little unit works out for us. This is not sponsored by any means, but I've heard a lot of good things about these, at least from what I've seen online. Reviews, really goofy name for a welder, Yes Welder. But hey. So this thing will work with 210 and 220. Well, I had ordered some wire from Amazon, but instead I got some WOW skincare crap. Trying to tell me something here? Anyhow, I went to my local hardware store, picked up what I was looking for, or At least what I ordered. Got this handy dandy chart we can toss on there. Toss this guy on the cart here. So I exchanged my bottle of argon out for a 75-25 mix of argon carbon dioxide. No welding pro, but apparently that's what you need. All right. Let's see if we can do some practice runs here. Good enough. See if we can't finish this thing up. Oh, snap. We've got the floor completely welded up. I'm gonna show you how these welds turned out, where I could have improved, but I'm pretty happy with the results. As you can see, the welds turned out pretty decent. The areas where I did have a good amount of gap up here where my fitment wasn't best, really had to bridge that, but yeah, we're not exactly building a show car here. And these areas here, up here, I did have some impurities in it. I just took a flap disc and just kind of ground it down. I did do better on the other side over here. A lot of it had to do with how comfortable I was while welding everything up, which I'm right-handed. On this side, it was a little easier to weld things up. Not too terrible, all in all. What parts I couldn't reach from the inside of the car, I went underneath and welded it up, which I'll show you here in a moment. But I want to move on to the next step, which is I got some seam sealer. In order to completely seal up those welds, we'll use some seam sealer. I do need to prep the welds. The seam sealer instructions here does say to use 50 to 80 grit on welds to rough up any bare metal. So we'll scuff everything up. We'll use a little bit of self-etching primer, followed by just some really cheap paint. I tried to get the closest color to the floor of the car. So we'll paint everything up so it doesn't rust up. I don't know why I have this on the table. This is for something else, which you'll see in the future. It's not for cleaning brakes. The diff, we need to weld the diff up. We'll make that a separate video. And then just some drop cloths so we don't get overspray on the dash, our nice new harness bar and seat that we've installed. So I'm gonna get to sanding, masking things off, sealing and painting. And that'll be another huge milestone step taken care of on this all-wheel drive swap. So let's get after it. This lift has been so valuable in getting underneath this car. I can't even tell you. All right, let's go sand underneath the car and I'll show you what I did underneath the car, shall we? You can see that we got some good penetration with our welds. Everything looks nice and uniform to the best of my abilities. I did have to weld it up here because it was just really hard to reach there inside the car, along with these seams here. Pretty difficult welding overhead. Not something I do every day, but we got it done. I'm gonna scuff these welds up. Get some of this burnt paint out of the way. We'll mask everything off, like our engine bay. Let's degrease this a little bit, shall we? Hit this with a little bit of seam sealer. There we go, everything is nice and seam sealed. We've taken care of both sides and underneath the car. I have everything all nice and masked off with some drop cloths, well, plastic drop cloths, just so we don't get overspray where we don't want it. Let's paint this, shall we? First, I'm just going to hit it with a little self-etching primer on all the bare metal areas, so let's go ahead and do that. It's going to be hard to film this because it's buried so deep in the car, so we'll do some primer, a couple coats of paint. We'll call it a day, shall we? It's been about 10 minutes, everything's dry to the touch. Now, let's hit it with some color. Ooh, that is really light. A little lighter than I thought it would be. We have everything all painted and unmasked. It is the next day, so everything is nice and dry. Now I just need to put my shifter cables, the computer's back, so let's go ahead and let's do that. And there we go, just like that, we have everything installed back in the car. Earlier in the video, I said that we did need a longer intermediate shaft, and that very day, this video is taking place for the course of maybe 5-6 days? Anyways, a package came in yesterday. Check this out. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, a whole nother transfer case, and this is the only thing I needed out of it. So let's toss this in the car and see if it fits. This intermediate shaft or idler shaft, whatever you want to call it, fits up great. Slid right in, so perfection, well worth the money. Getting the right part to make all this stuff work. And our other shaft over here will plug right in, aside from this part, which we'll still need to swap out for the Cruze style. I know someone had commented and said I should just get a Trax hub. However, the Trax is different from the Cruze in the sense that the hub on the Cruze bolts in. The Trax does not. It presses in, is retained with a C-clip. Is it possible to press in the Trax hub? Maybe, I don't know. But we're gonna try this first. But we're gonna try just swapping out the spline end, the cup with the bearings, the splines, and the jello pudding. One of the other things I need to do is adjust this support bracket that helps support this idle shaft that bolts up to the block. There's an OEM piece. They're very hard to find, so if you're paying attention in past episodes, I had this designed up. We kind of eyeballed it, kind of ballparked it. It's fairly close. I mean, it's close, but it isn't. So I'm gonna take some measurements off of this, send it over to my designer, have him make those changes, so that way we can get this bracket working, supporting this idler shaft, so that way we can move on. Last but certainly not least, I took the drive shaft to a drive shaft shop, and they said they can't modify this drive shaft because it's a friction style weld where these two pieces are just put together, friction welded up, and there's nothing they can really do in using the center carrier bearing. So I took the liberty of designing an adapter to go from the transfer case as well as the differential to a 1310 style U-joint, so that way they can fill in the gap in between those two flanges. Here's that design that I worked on. So at the moment I am getting quotes to have this part machined. So we're leaving off at a pretty good spot. We got the transfer case in. As soon as I get those machine parts back, I'll be able to go to the drive shaft shop, give them a measurement. They'll be able to make a two-piece drive shaft, and it'll be stronger using those 1310 U-joints. We're getting pretty close. At that point, it'll be all-wheel drive, baby. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, give this video a thumbs up so that way they know I'm doing a good job over here. Subscribe as well if you haven't. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. And boys and girls, we'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Where's your peace out?